Hi, Room One. I'm back again with more How to Play Dungeons and Dragons. Today we are going to be looking at creating characters. So in the video description below, there is a link to this sheet right here, which is a character sheet I wrote up for you guys, and you guys can print out. I recommend before you get any further in this video that you take the time to open that link and print it because then you can follow along with this and we'll be able to fill out our character sheets together. Okay. If you haven't seen the first video yet about how to create a setting, I recommend you do that because before you can play as your character, you kind of need to know where you're going to be. So, anyway, without further ado, we're going to start. The first place you need to look at on your character sheet, the first thing you need to fill out is this section up here that has the sections for your character's name, the fantasy creature that you are playing as, and your fantasy job. Okay, your character's name is very important because obviously you need a name so that way you can figure out who you're going to be. If you're playing as yourself, maybe you put your own name, that's totally fine. If you're playing as somebody different that you made up, or somebody different that you know, or a character from a show or something like that, whatever that information is, just make sure you write their name there. For the fantasy creature, that's just kind of, you know, whoever you want to be. So maybe your character is a human. Like if you're playing as yourself, you're a human, I'm a human. I would just put person or human or something like that. But this box becomes more important if you are doing something like, I'm going to be playing my cat Crouton, because he's funny, and I think he would be fun to play as in this game. And so for my response, I would put in cat. Okay, and then for your fantasy job is what your character does. Okay, and so this doesn't mean your character can't do other things as well. It's just this is their main thing. So, you know, in traditional Dungeons and Dragons, you might hear something like that your character is a wizard or a druid or a paladin or a cleric or whatever it is. But you can choose whatever you want. Crouton, since he's who I'm playing as, always tries to steal food from our pantry and also from our plates if we leave them out. And so for his fantasy job, I think I'm going to put thief because that makes sense for me for him. But like I said, you guys can come up with whatever you would like and put it in the box. Just make sure you have those three things: your character's name, what kind of creature they are, and what they do. Okay, and then we go to these boxes on the side. From top to bottom, they are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. These are what's called your character's stats, so this is how good they are at doing whatever they're trying to do. Okay. The way we are going to do this is I'm going to give a brief overview of what each of them does. Okay, and then I'm also going to explain how you decide what numbers to put in the blank boxes. Okay, so we'll go from the top to the bottom. So first we're going to go to strength. Strength is pretty self-explanatory. It's how strong your character is. So if you want them to be able to lift heavy things, if you want them to be able to swim well, climb well, jump far, all that kind of stuff, all of those like athletic things, you're probably going to go with strength. Okay. Dexterity is how fast your character is. So if you want to win a race, if you want to react to something before somebody else does, then dexterity is the stat for you. Constitution is how healthy your character is. If you want to avoid getting sick, that's important nowadays, and I mean always too, but especially now. If you want to avoid getting sick, if you want to, maybe your character eats some food that went bad. I know my cat is probably going to be doing that because he does that a lot in real life. Then Constitution will help you avoid it. It also helps you with things like your endurance, so like how far you can go, how long you can keep doing whatever it is you're doing. Next is intelligence. So intelligence is kind of like what you might have heard referred to before as like book smarts, right? And so it's maybe your character knows a lot of languages if you have high intelligence. Maybe you are good at solving puzzles or riddles. Maybe your character I don't know, has studied really hard for a lot of different things, then intelligence is the stat for you. So then your character might just know more about the world, things like that. With wisdom, that is how aware you are of yourself and your surroundings. Okay, and so if you're trying to find something that's hidden, and trying to be perceptive, that would be a wisdom roll. If you are trying to, it also has to do with your emotional awareness. So if somebody's trying to make you upset and you don't want that to happen, high wisdom will help you out. Things like that. The last stat here on the list is charisma, and that is your force of personality, and how good you are at like convincing people of things. So like if there's something that you want to borrow from somebody, and you need to convince them to let you use it, or if the bad guy is doing something bad and you're trying to convince them to do something good instead, that would be a charisma thing. So if that sounds interesting, that's what you're going to want to do. Okay, so now for the actual numbers. Okay, if we'll get into the math of how this all works in my next video, which is going to be about actually playing the game with the dice and all of that. But for now, we're just going to worry about filling out our sheet. Okay, so whichever one you want to be your, like the thing you are best at of these 6, you pick your favorite one, and you put a 6 in the box to the right. Okay, so for Crouton, I think his charisma is his best stat because he is very good at convincing me to give him treats and like playing with him and stuff like that. So, so he would have a 6 in charisma. Okay, then you pick the next favorite one. Okay, or the one that you think your character would be second best at. And you put a 5 in that box. Okay, and I think Crouton is really healthy. He somehow eats trash off the floor and is totally fine. So I think he has a lot of constitution. I would put a 5 in the box next to constitution. Okay. Next, I put in strength. For a cat, he's pretty strong. He doesn't jump very well, and instead he pulls himself onto things with his front legs, and so that takes a lot of arm strength. So I think he's a strong cat. So I put a 4 in the box next to strength. And then you put a 3 in the next one, 2 in the one after that, 1 in the one after that, right? Don't worry about the numbers. You're not going to be bad at any of those things. It's just a higher number you are going to be even better at. So don't worry about making your character bad at anything. That's not what we're worried about at this point. Okay, after you do all of your stats, you go to the section underneath it, which is called skills. Okay, and so this is things that you want your character to be good at, like actions you want to be good at, or like things to do specifically. So instead of general categories, like things that are strength-based or dexterity-based or whatever, we're going to think of specific things. So like this is where you put jumping, or if you want to be knowing a lot of languages, maybe you could put something about that, or maybe like for Crouton, he's really good at eating. He always eats his food right away and he scarfs it up. So I put eating as one of his skills, maybe. And like I was already saying, he's not a very good jumper, but he is good at climbing, so maybe climbing would be one of his skills. If you're playing like Steve from Minecraft or something, maybe digging would be one of your skills, or excavating, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe crafting would be another good skill for that kind of world. If you want to play a superhero or something, then maybe if you're Wonder Woman, protecting is one of your skills. Anyway, whatever you want to put on here, right, for something that your character is good at, you want to come up with 4 of them. Okay, I know there's more than 4 spots to write things, but leave those blank for now. You start with 4. We'll get into leveling up and stuff in future videos, but for right now, 4 is what you start with. Okay. After you come up with your skills and you write them on your sheet, okay, we're going to move over here to spells. And so spells has 6 boxes underneath it, 3 kind of skinnier ones and 3 kind of bigger ones. Okay. In the skinnier ones, that's where you write the name of the spell that you are giving your character. Okay. Underneath that, you write your description. The way spells work in this version of Dungeons and Dragons is you don't have to worry about numbers. You worry about what you want it to do. Okay. So for Crouton, because I'm building him, I might think that he often has this thing that he does where he'll like fall over or something. He's kind of clumsy for a cat. I find it to be an endearing quality, so I'm going to put a positive spin on it. So I was thinking maybe he would just have a spell called Whoops, and what it does is if something bad is going to happen to him, instead of whatever that is, he can fall over instead. Okay, and he can do that one time. And so that would be his spell. I know I just mentioned about number of uses and stuff. Again, we're not going to worry about that quite yet. And if you want, it could be, spells right now can just be something your character can do whatever. If you feel like that's too much, you can limit it however you want. Maybe it's once per time you play or something like that. But we'll get into actual rules with that all later. But yeah, so for now, it's just kind of whatever concept you want to do. So yeah, Whoops I thought was a fun one. He's also, cats do this thing where when they're happy, they purr and they go like this with their paws, and stretch out their fingers and whatnot. And some people call it making biscuits. Crouton does it a lot, and so I thought it would be kind of fun to give him a making biscuits spell. So, maybe it makes biscuits. It's just called making biscuits. Makes some biscuits, and they heal people. I don't know. Seems useful. Yeah, so it's whatever you want. You can pick up to 3 to start. If you do not want your character to be magical, or if you're playing a character that isn't magical or something like that, you can say, you know what, actually I don't want any spells, and instead you can add up to 2 more skills. Okay? So if you decide no spells at all for me, just leave it blank, because you could always maybe pick some up when you play. Maybe you'll come up with something later, whatever. And you can add 2 skills instead. Or you can just leave it blank and not worry about it. Okay? One more thing before I go, actually, I realized I forgot to mention, on the back of your character sheet, it is blank. However, that does not mean you cannot use it. You guys will notice that some of the things that we had during class, if you played with me then, did not make it onto this sheet. Okay, so if you want to add things, such as a spot to draw your character, a spot to write down what's in your inventory, okay, which is, so like if you want to draw your character, you can draw it wherever, you can take up the whole thing or not. And inventory is like what you're holding on to, okay, so like what you're carrying. So whether that is, equipment or cool armor, or maybe, if you're Crouton, maybe it's those biscuits he had before, or that he makes with his spell. Maybe it's his collar, which has a bow tie on it, so that's important to note. Anything like that, you could write it on here. You could also create, in class, we had this part called relevant NPCs, which is non-player characters is what NPC stands for. So anybody that the GM comes up with that isn't a character. And so you could write that differently and just write like friends, right? And that's any character that you meet, right? In those settings, the people who are in a place already, sometimes they're friendly, okay? And you meet them and you interact with them and you want to remember them for later, make a friends section, right? Write this person's name, and if you want to write anything else about them, like what they look like or what they do or, how you met, whatever it is, the back of the sheet is a great spot for that. Yeah, that's about it. Okay, so that's actually the end of the video. Sorry for the couple jump cuts today. Things got a little weird with the camera. So anyway, if you have any questions, I'm sure you could post them in the YouTube comments or reach out to Ari or something and she'll get to me and I'll be able to answer them. But that's it for today. Yeah. Have fun with your characters, and next week we'll be doing a video about actually playing, and so we'll get into the dice and the math and how to make something harder or easier or all that kind of stuff. So I'll see you guys then. Bye.